Before I start the main part of my presentation, I'd just like to share with you a short word. Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, it talks about the differences between the Talmidim of Avram Avinu and the Talmidim of Bilam HaRasha. And the question that can be asked is, if the Mishnah wants to talk about the differences, why go to the Talmidim? Why not speak about the differences between the Rabbi, between Bilam HaRasha and Avram Avinu? The Chassam Sofer says something which is amazing. Because many times in history you'll find that someone comes up with a great idea, and it seems that this idea is going to be the answer to all the world's problems. Then later on, history shows that not only doesn't it solve the world's problems, it has the opposite effect. A classic example of that is communism. Communism was going to save the world, and millions of people sold out to communism. Many religious Jews sold out to communism, but we know communism certainly did not save the world. If anything, it destroyed the world. And it's the same thing when you have personalities. Sometimes you have a personality who is a great speaker, and he's very charismatic, and it seems that he has a lot to offer. But you're only able to tell what he really is from the Talmidim. When you see what he produces, then you can tell, is he really what he was cut out to be? Or was he more of a charlatan? So it says in Chassam Sofer, Bilam HaRasha may have been a tremendous speaker. He may have been very charismatic, and it could be that many people thought that he would be a world leader. But the way in which you were able to tell what he was all about is by looking at the Talmidim. If you want to know what Bilam HaRasha was about, look at the Talmidim. If you want to know what Avram Avinu was about, look at the Talmidim. 3 years ago, I presented at the first open house of Heichal HaTorah, and it was before the yeshiva started. And we presented with an idea which was a great idea. We were going to push the Talmidim to be Talmidei Chachamim. We were going to work on all aspects of Avodas Hashem. There was going to be a very close relationship between the Rabbeim and the Talmidim. We were going to have a serious secular studies department so that they should be prepared to make a parnasa. But it was just an idea on paper. Now it's 3 years later. And I have to say, I really shouldn't be up here. The Talmidim should be up here. The nachas ruach that I have walking into yeshiva every day, the overall majority of the boys are healthy, growing, happy b'nei Torah. And it's such a schus to be part of this. I mean, I sometimes wonder how I get paid for this. But it's an unbelievable schus to be part of this. And I can only encourage you to seriously think about giving your child the opportunity. So I'd like to go through what we tried to accomplish with each part of the schedule. Obviously, there's going to be an emphasis on what I do, but I'll try to speak about what the other Rebbeim do as well. Obviously, we start off with davening, and we work very hard to teach them how to daven properly. That's not only through modeling. We Rebbeim try to show them how to daven, but we also try to teach them the halacha and explain to them halacha. As was mentioned, Rabbi Teichman, after davening, is not only a tremendous Rebbe, but he's a serious posek. He gets up after davening, and for a few minutes he takes a halacha or an aspect of tefillah and explains it so that the boys appreciate what they're doing. After that, we have halacha seder, where all the Rebbeim teach, each one in a chabur about 10 to 12 boys, and halacha seder is not there to turn them into poskim overnight. Our boys know very well that to be a serious posek, you need serious learning. There's no instant smicha where now all of a sudden you're the posek HaTorah. But they should know the framework of halacha, and they should know what is a shayla, what's not a shayla. And that's the basic framework of halacha. After breakfast, I'm privileged to teach the 9th grade high Ian Shir, but before we do that, I teach all the 9th graders hashkafa. In all my years of teaching, I always start off with hashkafa, which I find has a tremendous impact on the Talmidim. Firstly, because they see that we're not trying to shove things down their throat without them understanding. They can ask any question that they want. Right now I'm doing the Sefer Maimar HaIkrim from the Ramchal, which goes through many of the Yesodos of Yiddishkeit. It's an open forum, you ask whatever you want. And if I don't have an answer on the spot, I will get back to them, and they see that we're serious about it, and it's a tremendous draw. The second benefit of that is that once you have them for that, then it's easy to go into the Gemara. If you have to go straight for breakfast into Gemara, it's a little bit hard. So after Hashkafa we have Gemara Be'in. I have 4 goals in Gemara Be'in. I'll tell you the 4 goals, and then I'll tell you how I try to accomplish them. Number 1 is that they should recognize that every word of the Gemara and the Rishonim is there for a reason. In other words, to learn to be medayik, to recognize that the nuances of the language. The second is that they should learn to think beyond one step, or as we would say, introduction to lumdus. The third is that they should become fluent in the reading of Gemara, Rashi, and Tosas. The fourth is that they should be proactive learners and not just sit back and say, Rabbi, feed me, but have them involved. So I try very much to give an interactive shiur and not to lecture. I try to present it in a way where they can jump in and they argue it out. And if a guy says 30% of a svara, I try to develop the svara and try to get him to see where he can improve on the svara. So I try to get them to be proactive. Now, I give a bechina which has 2 parts to it. The first part is questions of that which we have learned, whether it be the Gemara, Rashi, Tosas, Rishonim, and Achronim. In that bechina, I let them use whatever they want. They can use their Gemara, they can use their notes, they can use whatever they want, as long as they wrote their own notes. I write on the board also, but if they took the time to copy off the board, they can use it. If they want to use someone else's notes, they cannot. Now, the reason why I do that is because I don't want them to panic about memorizing everything. I write the questions in such a way that if you don't understand it, you won't get the questions right. If you understand that which you had written, and then you will do well in the bechina. And Baruch Hashem, the overwhelming majority do very well, and those who haven't yet will do very well because they see what's necessary. The second part of the bechina is I give them a copy of the Gemara, Rashi, and Tosas, and they can't use anything for this. They have to punctuate the Gemara, Rashi, and Tosas to show me that they know how to read it. That way I'm able to work on both the lumdus and work on the reading of Gemara, Rashi, and Tosas, and as well as work on the ability to be medayik. The 10th and 11th pick up on there. I generally give chavrusa time for chazara, not for making a laning. Maybe at the end of the year I will, but I generally give for chazara. As they get to 10th and 11th, then the Rebbeim start giving them more chavrusa time for making a laning because they've developed skills. And Baruch Hashem, we've seen great hatzlacha in that area. They have developed tremendously, and as Rabbi Westrach is telling me, he came in this year, he said, you and Rabbi Kamen did a good job, that they could read, and he just had a principal from another yeshiva come in, a former principal, and he said you guys are reading very well. He was very impressed with what they were doing. After the Gemara Be'in, we have a Chumash Seder. Obviously the Gemara Seder is an hour and a half, but the Chumash Seder is a half hour. I teach one of the great things about Heichal is that every Rebbe is involved with every Talmud. I'm very close with my Talmidim. I would love to teach them 10th, 11th, everything, but Baruch Hashem, I love to teach the 9th grade also. But as I am able to teach everybody, I teach halacha to 10th and 11th graders, one shiur, and a different shiur, 10th and 11th graders, I teach Chumash. So I'm teaching the highest level 10th, 11th shiur in Chumash. What I'm trying to do is to show them how to learn Chumash, both in terms of being medayik in the pasuk, how to learn a Rashi. We learn a lot of Gur Aryehs on the Rashis. We learn Rambans. And I hold them responsible. Every Monday we have a quiz, 2 aliyahs with Rashi, plus whatever we may have said during this year. Then we have a Bikiyas program. Now, I have 3 goals when it comes to Bikiyas. I teach 9th grade Bikiyas. I have 3 goals when it comes to Bikiyas. First is that they should know the Masechta. But, believe it or not, that's my smallest goal. I want them to know the Masechta, there's no question, and I push them hard to know the Masechta. There are incentives and the like, but we do it in such a way where it's self-motivating when they see that they succeed. Well, as I'll describe soon. The second goal, which is more important, is that if they know the Masechta, that breeds confidence in them, and they see that I can do this, and they want to do more Masechtas, and they want to learn because they see they could succeed. And the most important goal for the 9th graders for me is that the more Gemaras they see and the more Gemaras they review, the more fluent they become in the reading of Gemara, which is the basis of all learning in the future. As great of a service that Art School did for the Jewish people, it is not the best way to connect to learning. To really connect to learning, you got to know how to read, and you got to know how to understand. And the more Gemaras that they see, and the more Gemaras that they review, the more they are connected to learning. Now, Rabbi Stekler came up with an unbelievable idea which has worked wonders, and that is the Bechinas, both in the Ian and in the Bekiyas, 20% of the Bechina and the extra credit go by the amount of hours of learning you put in without batal. The first question on my test is, how many hours did you learn without batal? So I might give a few hours during the chavrusa time for them to do that, plus time at home. And if they do it right away, they have 20% of the points, plus they get extra credit of 5 or 10 points, which would be an extra hours. If they don't do it, they start with they can't get high in the bechina. So at first they say, well, that's not fair, Rabbi. But it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Once they do it, because they have a little pride in themselves, they say, I can do this. I can learn with hasmata. And then they learn it, and then they see they could do it. And then last year, Baruch Hashem, by the end of the year, my boys took the Masechta. I had one boy who said to me, and many could have said this, but one boy said to me, Rabbi, the whole year you're jumping up and down and saying that by the time I get finished with you, you're going to know this Masechta backwards and forwards. I thought you were nuts, I have to tell you the truth. But Rabbi, I know the Masechta backwards and forwards. And he took the whole Masechta closed book. See, that's the one point that I left out, and that is, I bedavka in the 9th grade, give the bechina with an open Gemara. Not with their Gemara where they write in the words. I suggest and I push them to write in all the translations and write the periods and write the commas so that they'll be active in it and they'll get the words down in the review. But then, on the actual bechina, I give them a copy of the Gemara Shitosis without the words written in. And I write the questions in a way they have to understand, because I bedavka don't do it closed book, because then they're going to cram with article and try to remember Yedias. I want them that if they know the Gemara very well inside, they'll ace the bechina. And again, as I said, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I have tremendous honor. You can speak to the Talmidim. Those who could hardly read in the 9th grade are polishing on Masechtas, reviewing them, and it's a tremendous nachas ruach. After the Bekiya Seder and the Chavrusa time for Chazara, there's a 10-minute shmuz every day before Mincha. That also has a dual purpose. One is